Welcome back to another episode of Stacking Dennys. I'm Jordan McAbee of Rotoballer. My co-host Nick Giffen of the Action Network. Christopher Bell in victory lane at Phoenix. Toyota complete domination. Denny Hamlin, Tyler Reddick leading the way. 68 laps led. Martin Truex Jr. led 55. Christopher Bell added another 50, and Ty Gibbs leading 57. Another strong run by Ty Gibbs, by the way. That kid that nobody really likes, but they're finally seeing his talent. Chris Buescher with another solid finish at Phoenix comes home second. Brad Keselowski bringing up fourth place. RFK with two top four finishes. Ryan Blaney gets another top five at Phoenix, extends his streak to 6 straight in the desert. Ross Chastain, Truex, Michael McDowell, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick rounding out the top 10. Here's the thing, Nick. We went into last weekend. We talked about it on the show last week. You said Toyota is going to be the strongest. Absolutely. Like, there's no question about it. Christopher Bell had that's probably the most dominant car that we have seen in the next gen era. I would put it up there. That car was ridiculous. He came back from his pit crew lost him 11 spots on that final pit stop, and he still drove up through the field, still ended up leading the biggest win margin in next gen era. There's never been a bigger win.
Can you imagine if he restarted that instead of losing all those pit stops, if he restarted at the front? How much would he win by? Half a lap, right?
Yeah, and you know what's funny is the second largest winning margin is also Christopher Bell from New Hampshire a couple years ago or a year ago. Mm-hmm. So Christopher Bell, they had that car dialed up for sure. He locks himself into the playoffs. We're obviously going to go back to Phoenix later in this year for the championship race. And to me, I want to get your thoughts on this before we talk about the overall race. Is Christopher Bell all of a sudden the championship favorite? Because that car comes to Phoenix, I don't see how he gets beat in November. Now, obviously, he has to get through the playoffs. He has to make it to the Final Four. But holy shit, that car was fast, and it was fast from Friday on. If he would have qualified better, if he would have restarted better in that final restart, we would be talking even more about his dominating car. So what are you thinking there?
Yeah, honestly, I don't think you should bet him as the favorite because I don't think you should bet any of these championship favorites right now. Mm-hmm. He's nominally right now the favorite. I mean, look who's won. Kyle Larson's won. You can make an argument for him. Wayne Byron's won. You can make an argument for him. Daniel Suarez has won. You can't make an argument for him. And then Christopher Bell has won. And to me, if we look at Larson, Byron, and Bell, while they're all super similar in talent, I mean, I think Kyle Larson's the most talented. Right now, JGR has the dominant equipment. We saw it even though Kyle Larson won Las Vegas, won all the stages, Tyler Reddick was going to pass him at the end if they had a few more laps. And look how the playoffs set up. I know they set up really well for Kyle Larson as well, but I think they set up even better for Christopher Bell. If you look at Watkins Glen and Bristol, those are both great for Larson and Bell. If you look at Kansas and the Roval in the next round, those set up pretty well for both of those, and Talladega's a wild card. But look at Las Vegas, Homestead, and Martinsville. Yeah, Homestead's amazing for Kyle Larson, but it's really good for Bell too. Las Vegas, similar for both, but Martinsville is certainly an edge for Christopher Bell. And then we saw Phoenix. We literally just saw it. So it's a long way off. Phoenix is a crazy long way off. But obviously, based off what we saw this past weekend, if you put the two of them head-to-head at Phoenix, we have to lean Christopher Bell right now. Will things change over the course of the season? Absolutely. So if you told me today, I'd make Bell the favorite, but I don't necessarily think that means I'll make him the favorite come playoff time. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So right now, Larson, I'm just looking up Bet Rivers right now. I haven't looked at all the books, but Larson's the favorite, Byron, and then they have Bell sitting there at 7-1. I know on Monday after that win at Phoenix, he was still sitting there at 9-1. Obviously, those books have adjusted, but yeah, long way till the championship race. But man, that car was bad fast, and man, we don't see that very often with this next gen car. Biggest story of the weekend was obviously the new package, this new short track package that NASCAR unveiled. Drivers were not very happy with it after practice. The thing is, though, and I think we're going to have slightly different takes on this because I like between all your tweets about it, I know where you stand on this. But here's the fact of the matter. 40% of viewers said that this was a good race. That means 60% said no in Jeff Gluck's poll. And I think a major reason for that is because they went into this race especially into Saturday after the practice session of all these drivers saying this package sucks, it was dead on arrival. It didn't matter how good that race was, what all happened. I will say this. I still think it's incredibly hard to pass with this package unless you have a blazing fast race car. But to me, it also makes the driver earn it more. Guys like Ross Chastain at the end there, the reason he finished sixth was because he was able to block and guys weren't able to pass. That's partially on Chastain being able to do that. It benefits guys like that. But I don't think people had a chance to understand. It was actually a very good Phoenix race because we got pit strategy in there. We saw tire fall off, and there was one dominant car, but didn't dominate the whole race. So I was a little surprised that only 40% said yes. I was, but I wasn't, because I thought, like, I didn't think it was a great race, but I still voted yes. I thought it was a good race.
It was a good race.
It was a little above average for me.
Yeah, it was a good race. It wasn't a great race. I don't think it was a great race. I just thought it was a good race. I thought it was enjoyable racing. That's, for me, a good race. Were they 5 wide upside down and on fire, as Moody says, crossing the finish line? No, of course not. But, I mean, hell, literally it was the biggest stinker in terms of margin of victory in the next gen era, so people hate that. Yeah. But I don't want every race to be 5 wide upside down and on fire crossing the finish line. I want good old classic racing sometimes. Phoenix was really enjoyable. It was, like you said, there was a dominant car, but he didn't dominate. I mean, I think it was 4 Toyotas dominated. Like, Ty Gibbs, Denny Hamlin, Martin Truex Jr., and Chris Bell all led a chunk of laps, and I think we're all in the optimal lineup possibly on DraftKings.
Plus Reddick.
And then, Reddick, I think it was. There was five of them led 50. 5 of them, and Bubba Wallace was pretty good. Like, I mean, Toyota was good, and you could pass. We saw 2, 3, 4 wide racing, sometimes for multiple laps. But also, you're correct in that you had to earn it. And you had to earn it in either way. You had to earn it by passing the guy in front of you, or you had to earn staying in front of the guy in front of you by blocking them, aero blocking them, that kind of thing. But it was still easier to pass than last year. The numbers bear it out. Straight up, the numbers bear it out. It has been the Phoenix race with the most passes in years. And they're all judged the same way. I know, green flag, pit stop, like, doesn't matter. All judged the same way. It was the race with the most passes. That are like legitimate passes, and honestly, it was a good race, and it didn't even matter that I won my bets or lost my bets. That was a good race. I said that it was a good race in the middle of the race before if I knew I would win my bets or not. You know what I mean? So None of that matters. And you and I are always like that. Like, I know people who listen to us a long time know we don't judge based off our bets, but some newer listeners or just the random haters or whatever, oh, well, you're only like that because you won your bet. No, not at all. We've always been that way. We've been consistent about that. And to me also, it's pretty hard for me to find a bad NASCAR race. We've talked about this before. Like, I rarely vote no because I love NASCAR racing, period. There's maybe 1 or 2 or 3 races last year, maybe 1 or 2 or 3 races tops the year before that I'll vote no, but it's incredibly rare. I think maybe I voted no since we've been doing this podcast 3 or 4 times tops. I would bet that's the maximum. I don't have a specific number. I would bet I would set the over under at 3.5 as like a fair line of the number of times I voted no, it wasn't a good race, and probably 2 of them are Martinsville. Both of them were the spring Martinsville, the first Martinsvilles of the next gen era. But it was fine. It wasn't a great race. It wasn't in Atlanta. It wasn't a Kansas last year. But it was good racing. I enjoyed it. I had fun. It was cool to see a driver, and I'm not even talking Chris Bell, a driver make a late pit stop, go a lap down, and drive all the way back up to 7th place, Martin Truex Jr., right? Like, isn't that what we want?
That reminded me a lot of Phoenix or Richmond.
Yeah, isn't that what we want? I don't understand what people want if you don't like that. No, kudos to NASCAR and Goodyear for bringing a tire that fell off. I don't remember the last time I saw a tire fall off at Phoenix. That was good. That's an applause, right? Like, I'm not saying the aero package was a slam dunk, but the tires, I would give that an A as far as an improvement. If it continues to improve, certainly it would be like a B now. But in terms of my expectations for what the tire actually did, that was an A. I'd give that an A on the tires.
Here's the thing with they improved Phoenix, which is very hard to do. Like Phoenix is not a good racetrack.
It's not a good racetrack. Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that they improved it at the first go, and obviously, like I'm super critical of NASCAR all the time, but the fact that they improved it at the first try, made that race palatable, is saying a lot, I think. And I think it forces us to have optimism heading forward into the other short tracks, into the other flat tracks, because I think that was a big step forward that not enough people are talking about.
One point to that, though, and it's not my pushback. We've heard it the last couple days. Denny Hamlin, well, more horsepower isn't going to cost us. Kyle Larson, I've talked to Hendrick. Yeah. More horsepower isn't going to cost us. So, to your point, they made Phoenix better, but the drivers are still saying we want more horsepower, which I agree with. Obviously, we all agree with that. But where is the line drawn to they made it better, but we want more horsepower? Yet, if you talk to most of the drivers, I think, or I would say a potential majority of the drivers, I think they all think it was improved after racing, not necessarily before, like you said, going into the weekend, which already made the race dead on arrival, like you mentioned. But, like, where's the line we draw? Because the driver feedback is something people listen to. It's going into the weekend, it was, or after practice, this is terrible. Then after the race, it was like, well, this was better by not all, but the majority of the drivers, I would say. And then a day after that, it's like, well, we still need more horsepower. So what, like, that also plays into fans' minds when they hear that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that part of it is just fans and NASCAR drivers overall just never being satisfied. But the more that this horsepower thing, like obviously Hamlin's been pretty outspoken about this, but Kyle Larson getting involved in saying the exact same thing as Hamlin, it's just creating more and more people saying, NASCAR, what the hell are you doing? Like, why aren't you at least trying this? And eventually, I think NASCAR is going to have to answer that question. There has to be a reason that they don't want to try it. If it's because they said it's a money thing, they said it's more expensive, and drivers are saying it's not. A team owner is saying it's not more expensive. So now you lied to everybody. Now what's the real reason? Because now there's a different reason.
Maybe before they weren't lying, but now if you say it, you're lying. Yes,
yeah,
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation. It's like, how do you we compliment NASCAR on the improvements. I thought it was a good race. I didn't think it was an amazing race. That was a good race. I compliment NASCAR on the improvements. I definitely compliment Goodyear and NASCAR and the drivers that tested working together to make that tire, because that was A+, as far as expectations relative to the tire. The aero package, the car itself maybe, the horsepower package, all that stuff still leaves stuff to be desired, of course. But, I'm certainly not going overboard in my applause of NASCAR, but things are improving. I think we can agree on that. And talk about improving. I mean, 19% improvement in viewership.
Yeah, that's big. And again, like we talked about last week, Chase Elliott effect. It'll be interesting to see if this continues. But right now, excuse me, viewership up massively. I saw a tweet this morning that said all 4 races this season have had over 4 million viewers.
Yeah.
They only did that 3 times the entire time last year, the entire season.
I think it was 4 times last year, but yeah, we've already matched all of last year.
Something like that. Yeah, which is just, it's good. And it doesn't hurt that, like, Atlanta was obviously a great race. Vegas was a good race despite the domination of Larson, and then, Phoenix was Phoenix. And now we get Bristol. We get concrete Bristol back in the spring, which, we're going to preview here later. But going back to Phoenix for a little bit, obviously, like we said, Toyota, complete domination. They had 5 drivers lead 50 or more laps. Like, that is just, they shit on everybody. One noteworthy thing here, though, is, Chevrolet won the first 3 races. 1 Daytona, 1 Atlanta, 1 Las Vegas. Chevrolet was not good in this race. William Byron was the best Chevrolet driver in green flag speed. He was 8th fastest. Chase Elliott was the next. He was 11th. Driver rating, Byron again the top, Chase Elliott there. But overall, Chevy struggled quite a bit. Mm-hmm. Is there concern there heading into to Bristol this weekend, are we fading Chevys again?
You bring up a great question, and I don't know about Bristol because it's the intermediate package here. It's a concrete track. It's different fall off. It's all that stuff. But like I quoted Jim Sonis last week, I mean, Chevy was booty last half of the year in short flat tracks last year, especially Hendrick Motorsports, compared to what they normally are. I'm not saying they're bad. Like, finishing sixth or being the 8th fastest or whatever isn't terrible, but it's not what you're expecting. They're down. They're down from where they were at this track type. And this new package hasn't changed any of that. It seems like, even if anything, not only has Toyota made gains, but Ford has made gains. Ford looked pretty solid this weekend. So
Ford looked very good.
I think Chevy is down, and Chevy is the only manufacturer that didn't bring a new body this year. And the whole point of bringing new bodies is because you're trying to improve. You're not bringing a new body because it's the same or worse. You know what I mean? So, I think this is a spot where it's just going to have to, Chevy's going to have to keep working to catch up. At this point, I'm saying at this point they have to catch up. Like, I'm not saying they're, maybe one bad race. I'm actually saying they have to catch up because Toyota especially, but probably Ford too, is ahead at this track type right now. And so it'll balance. It'll change. We always talk about this. It'll change after 10, 12, 13, the Coke 600, halfway, somewhere in there. It changes. But right now they're behind. Chevy is behind at this track type. And specifically Hendrick Motorsports compared to where they used to be. But also, I mean, look at RCR. They were garbage. Dylan, you can't really, whatever. He got in an early wreck. That's not his fault. But overall,
Kyle Busch was
garbage. Yeah.
Bad.
But that was the thing. That's why Christopher Bell for me was such a smash over Kyle Busch. And you had Bubba Wallace over Kyle Busch. Those weren't, I know you got a little freaked out when things happen at the end and you're like, am I going to lose my Bubba versus Kyle Busch bet? I'm like, no, he's just bad, dude. He's just bad. And not Kyle Busch himself. He's a good driver, obviously. He being his car, his team, his situation right now is bad today on this track and whatever,
Yeah. Overall, though, Chevy's struggling. And one thing to note here heading into Bristol this weekend, one, like I said, we're going back in the spring on concrete. That's awesome. But guess who dominated the last time we were at Bristol last September? Joe Gibbs Racing.
Fucking Bell.
Chris Bell, 187 laps led, finished third. Denny Hamlin led 142 laps. He won the race, and Ty Gibbs finished fifth. He led 102 laps. So 431 laps out of 500 led by Joe Gibbs Racing the last time we were at Bristol. We could easily see this domination continue. Speaking of Ford being strong, like you said, Chris Buescher finished second. Keselowski and Blaney, both top fives. Michael McDowell with another very solid finish at Phoenix. I am kicking myself for not nuking that under 21.5 finishing position like my gut feeling told me to.
I'm sorry.
You're good. Chase Briscoe, your 36 for 36 pick came away with another top 10 finish. That's his fourth in 5 races in the next gen car at Phoenix. But someone that everybody's talking about, Noah Gregson.
Yeah.
With another fucking amazing run. Finishes 12th. Is doing more in that Stewart Haas car than the entire organization did for all of 2023. The guy is legitimately showing top 10 speed these last 2 weeks, which are, these have been the more predictable races.
Yeah.
Are we buying
two different track types?
Are we jumping on the Noah Gregson train right now? Because I feel like we have to.
Absolutely. There's, I think a lot of reasons. First of all, he has experience in this car. He ran half a season last year. He's run some other races in this car in 2022. Second of all, I think his mindset is a lot better. And I know, it came from a bad thing, but has turned into, it's not the same thing with Larson, but they both have, I feel like, improved mentally and in their comfort zone. They're learning from their mistakes, and then also just things are clicking for him. I don't know what it is. They're clicking, and that's good. That's
Mhm.
he's never been a bad driver. I mean, he's always been great in Xfinity or trucks or whatever. And that's why I think last year was so shocking for us, because he was so bad last year. But I also think that's why this reset was important for him, because he was bad last year, and I really couldn't have gotten more rock bottom than last year for him. And so, yeah, he's turned it around, and now we're going to a track that's great for him. I'm not, trying to jump too far ahead into Bristol, but certainly I think we should expect more from Noah Gregson at this point. And honestly, overall, Stuart Haas has been improved. Chase Briscoe, like you said, finished ninth. Las Vegas, he showed early run flashes. He qualified well. He ran well on short runs, Chase Briscoe, but he didn't have the long run speed to finish,
especially compared to where he was last year.
I mean, he was in the 30s last year in every single intermediate race for the first half of the year in terms of flags or, whatever metric you want to use.
Right.
Ryan Preece was totally fine. Obviously their strategy bit them in the ass, but he was totally fine. I was legitimately sweating a 100-1 top Ford on him, or whatever it was, 125-1 at certain points if strategies worked out a certain way. So yeah, I mean, Stuart Haas as a whole has improved. But I do think the leader in the stable right now, as far as not only the most improvement, but actually just the best right now, is Noah Gregson.
Yeah. Four races in, he's definitely the best right now. And I'm not sure how. I don't think it's that close. Briscoe's there, but I don't think
I agree with you.
I don't think it's very close. Another guy with another solid finish and a great start to this year. He now has 2 straight top 15s. Carson Hocevar ran 15th again this weekend at Phoenix. We saw him last year. He seems to constantly outperform his equipment, or just does the best with what he can with it. So he's one guy I'm eyeing for Bristol this week, because he ran really well here last year in the Cup Series. Yeah. So I'm looking at him. Tyler Reddick, though, before we move on and look at the standings. Actually, 2 more things. First, Tyler Reddick once again looked like he could win this race. He's finished top 2 in the stages. I think for the last 5 stages, he's finished top 2. When does he finally break through and get a win? Because this is a guy that he's always shown flashes, but now all of a sudden he's constantly running up front and doesn't seem like he's running into the issues that he is. Another solid run out of that 45 team.
Yeah. That's, to me, Tyler Reddick's a tough one. Like, he's a guy that he has, obviously, as Kyle Larson, similarities. We've talked about this many times, but he's also had a little bit of the closing issues that had plagued Larson up until Larson's breakout year in his first year at Hendrick, excuse me. So you want to see that from Tyler Reddick, like, this year, right? I mean, he's legitimately just getting JGR equipment. He's in 2311, but I mean, it's JGR equipment. It's not beat around the bush there. It is. And he needs to start closing races out. He faded at the end. They didn't make the right adjustments or something, I don't know what it is, but he's had a lot of trouble closing, and that's not a great characteristic to have right now. But it is also great to be fast as shit, like he is at a lot of times in these races.
Yeah, because if you're fast enough, eventually you're going to fall into a win if you don't earn it. So,
and I mean, he should have
definitely,
he should have. It didn't work out, and I'm not blaming him for that at all. That's just great hard racing, and it didn't work out. But Phoenix, I'm also not blaming him, but they definitely took a turn for the worse once they got in traffic kind of late in that race.
Yeah, because, he finished 10th, Hamlin finished 11th, and Hamlin spun himself out and had to recover from that. So, yeah. Speaking of spinning out and wrecking, Joey Logano finishing 34th. Once again, another wreck from Logano. Previous Cup Series champion now sits 30th in the points standings. Are they hitting the panic button yet? Nah, all it takes is a win, but man,
you can't.
He has to be growing frustrated.
I mean, he wasn't good. He was not good, especially when you compare him to Blaney.
He was not. And his practice speeds. That made no sense.
Yeah, I agree. It made no sense. But you talked about it on your live, DFS show. I wasn't there on Logano like you were, and I don't know what it is. It didn't feel right. I cannot put a reason why. His practice times look great. But, and honestly, I've mentioned a lot how I watched those test races that RFK Racing posted to their YouTube from the Phoenix test. Blaney looked good. He certainly didn't look like Christopher Bell. So when I went back and thought about it, I was like, Blaney looked good in those test races. He didn't look great. Like, I thought Christopher Bell would kick Blaney's ass, and he did. But Joey should not have been that slow. He was fine at Vegas, obviously. He wasn't amazing. He qualified in pole, went straight backward for a little bit until he settled into where he should have been around the back half of the top 10, early part of the teens. But that's where he is right now. I think that's kind of where we have to assess. Joey Logano will be in that range of back half of the top 10, early half of the teens, and he'll have races where he's worse than that range, and he'll have races where he's better than that range. But right now, I think he's a borderline round of 8 contender, I would say at this point.
I agree with that. But yeah, just another bad finish, and like I said, he's sitting there full 100 points behind his teammate Ryan Blaney. Shifting over to the point standings, Blaney now 3 top 5s to start out the year. First 4 races, leads the point standings with 151. Kyle Larson in second with 141, as is Martin Truex Jr. Ty Gibbs sitting there in 6th in points. Also noteworthy, 3 top 10s for him to start out the year. And then Ross Chastain grabbed his 3rd top 10 this weekend at Phoenix as well, sitting 7th in points. I know we talked about some surprises last week. Not a lot has changed this week. Obviously it's early in the season, so a good run and a bad run is going to make you jump 6 or lose 6 places.
Yeah. Christopher Bell's not even in the top 10 in points, right?
Yeah, Christopher Bell is 12th right now, yeah.
Yeah, and he just kicked the shit out of the whole field, and we're talking about him as a championship contender, so it's too early to be worried about specific spots in the standings, but at the same time, you still don't want to be where Joey Logano is down in 30th.
Yeah, exactly. He's behind Justin Haley, for Christ's sake. That's all you have to say.
That's a great point.
Also, though, we talked about SHR, which Gregson is 26th in points, and that's with that 35-point penalty. If he didn't have that 35-point penalty, he would be sitting 14th or 15th in points.
Yeah, right behind Bubba.
But yeah, on the other side of the coin, of the other side of the Stewart-Haas coin, Ryan Preece currently 35th in points. Josh Berry currently 31st in points. So there are drivers that are having worse seasons than Joey Logano. Also,
we gotta add 35. Got to add 35 to Preece as well, right? So he'd be at 63 points. He'd be. But to be fair, he would be at 63 points, which would be still behind Daniel fucking Hemrick.
Yeah.
Well, 26th. It would be 27th with Noah Gregson improving as well. So that's still not great. But like we talked about, he went for it. They tried a strategy that didn't work out. Maybe 23rd was deserved, but also there was the potential for certainly for better upside on Preece on Phoenix. But you get the point. 27th after 4 races isn't where you want to be, but it's still ahead of Joey Logano.
Yeah. And like I said, Austin Dillon also down there, 32nd in points. Hate to see it, but
honestly, though, we know that dude has just been snake bit to start the year. Things not of his doing. Daytona 500 wreck right off the bat. Wreck right off the bat in Phoenix because some guy in front of him ran out of talent. It's been a shitty year for Austin Dillon so far, and it really hasn't been his fault. I think even something happened early at Atlanta, and then he finished 16th at Vegas, which was pretty respectable. It's been a tough season for him, but a lot of it has been bad luck. For me, I'm relating it a little bit to how Kyle Kirkwood started the year last year. Aside from his Long Beach win, it seemed like every single race he was snake bit by things out of his control. Now, I'm not saying Austin Dillon is Kyle Kirkwood, because he's not. Kyle Kirkwood is the GOAT, and Austin Dillon sucks ass, but relatively speaking. Austin Dillon certainly deserves to be much higher in the point standings than he is.
Mm-hmm. Anything else sticking out to you on these standings as surprising or
Daniel Suarez top 10 right now? Daniel's amigos. I know what that is. There's a win in there, but look, a win, 11th at Vegas, 13th at Phoenix. He was my Paul Menard pick of the week at Phoenix. Didn't quite work out, but it's 13th for a guy who was 10% owned or something and started, I think, 15th is not a terrible result. I know there were several Suarez lineups in the top 100 when I looked in the big GPP. So I'm certainly happy with the Paul Menard pick of the week. The whole point of the Paul Menard pick of the week is to find a guy who's a little too low owned or low owned and leverage him a little bit and if he hits, you'll be in great shape. And he definitely didn't hurt you in this race.
Mm-hmm. You know, one noteworthy thing I just noticed while browsing these standings, Chase Elliott sitting 9th in points, which is just surprising in and of itself because, you know, Elliott's down on speed a little bit. He's 9th in points with 0 top 10s this year.
Bagel, I knew
his
exactly
finishes this year 14th, 15th, 12th, and 19th. And he's sitting 9th in points. That is certainly something. And he is the only guy. Hocevar, Hemrick, Harrison Burton, Todd Gilliland, Justin Haley, Josh Berry, Austin Dillon, Zane Smith, Kaz Grala, Ryan Preece, and Chase Elliott are the only guys without top 10s this year.
Yeah, you have to go down from Chase Elliott in 9th in the standings all the way to Carson Hocevar in 23rd in the standings before you find the next person, just in terms of the point standings, that does not have a top 10. So, you know, Chase hasn't had any disastrous finishes, but he's running a little ahead of a guy who's currently sitting 23rd in the points in terms of, like, you know, ballpark running position.
Yeah. So, yeah, you got anything else on these standings?
I do not. I think I'm ready to roll on to the next topic. Maybe it's a little whine about it. I will say the 69 challenge has not been completed yet this year. So we can't forget that. We can't forget that.
I forgot about the 69 challenge.
Ross Chastain has a chance to complete that earlier this year by finishing 9th this weekend at Bristol. If I look real quick at the Xfinity series, I would not expect there to be a completion of the challenge, but you never know. You never know. I think it's a little easier in Xfinity just because, like, there's a much bigger separation of the cars. You know, like, you're not really going to see Jeb Burton going for a 6th and a 9th back-to-back, but certainly you could expect anybody from Chandler Smith down through, like, Parker Kligerman in the point standings to do that. But don't see it in the Xfinity series, and let me see if I see it in the truck series. NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series. I would highly doubt it, but no completions yet this year. So Ross has a chance to do it by finishing 9th at Bristol.
Let's go, Ross Chastain.
Yeah, 9th place finish this week. That'd be great. That'd be nice.
You were right. It would. You were right, though. We're gonna roll right into whine about it this week, and I know you have a pretty good one, so I'm gonna let you kick this one off. Presented by Luvabella Winery.
Yeah, so first of all, my apologies to Luvabella Winery and to Brew Kettle for not having a drink with me. Needed a little departure from that. Obviously, I have my one Tecate, but that's it. It was meant to kick off the opening of the podcast with the normal beer opening, but I fucked it up and accidentally opened it early, so that's what it is. But it's the only one I'm having. We'll be back next week full-fledged. Don't worry about that. But just need a little break. But obviously, Luvabella, amazing. Brew Kettle, amazing. I have intended to only have the Brew Kettle beers on stream here while we're doing this podcast. I shouldn't say stream, but on this podcast. But I broke that rule earlier today, which is why I'm not having one now. So it is what it is. But my whine about it goes back to Phoenix and how, it was a good race. We both voted yes. We didn't think it was amazing. We understand why the audience voted 40-60. But I don't take issue with you saying it was hard to pass. Not you specifically, but this person that I'm addressing. I don't have an issue if you're saying it was hard to pass. I believe it was hard to pass. It was. Unless you had a fucking kick-ass car, it was probably hard to pass. My issue is you saying passing in this Cup car is 10 to 15 times worse than anything you've ever driven. That means you suck, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's Derek Kraus for Colleague Racing. Coming out here after he spun his own ass out and wrecked 3 or 4 other cars because he didn't have any talent. Dude, what are you talking about? Other guys could pass. There were more passes in the history of Phoenix, it seems like, in years, maybe a decade. I don't know. I remember seeing the stats, and I was like, yeah, that's a long time. There hasn't been a pass. You go look at Ty Gibbs in car, and he fucking passes half the field in 2 laps. I know it's a restart, but there was parts where guys in front of him, McDowell, I think it was Busher, got single file, and he just drives straight under him. No, it was hard to pass because you're facing the best fucking drivers in the world, and you haven't faced the best fucking drivers in the world yet. And obviously you can say, well, the best drivers in the world are F1 or IndyCar. But best fucking drivers in your discipline, anything you've ever competed in. You're at the top of any series you've ever competed in right now. And it's only hard to pass because you're not good. You're slow. You spun yourself out. You haven't shown any speed in either race that you've participated in terms of non-drafting races. 10 to 15 times worse. No other driver's saying that. Denny Hamlin's not saying that. Martin Truex Jr.'s not saying that. Kyle Larson's not saying that. They said they would like more horsepower. They said they'd like it to be different, better, improved. They're not saying this is 10 to 15 times worse. I saw a lot of passing. I saw Christopher Bell pass the whole field twice, essentially, and then drive off from the field, just like he did in the test. I saw Ty Gibbs pass the shit out of people. I saw Martin Truex Jr. get lapped and unlap himself and finish 7th. Yeah, you needed a good car to pass, but you could pass. And even if you didn't have a good car, you could either pass or be passed. We saw that. We saw drivers come and go the whole race. Was it easy? No. But there was proven in the data more passing than before. So I don't know. I mean, if there was more passing now and you say these cars are 10 to 15 times anything worse, well, I guess you didn't drive in the Gen 6 car, right? Because we're at Gen 7 now, the next gen. I don't know what you would have said about the Gen 6 car if it was easier to pass then, or harder to pass then, I should say, at Phoenix based off the data. So I don't know, man. It just bothers me when maybe the worst guy in the field in terms of talent, and certainly in one of colleague there, I understand their trophy hunting, but they're not really in the Cup Series trophy hunting. They're close to a backmarker team. Arguably, maybe the
outside
only
of road courses,
team worse,
absolutely.
I would say maybe the only team worse than them right now is Rick Ware Racing. Part of it could be the driver lineup. They're not putting talented drivers up like Derek Kraus and Daniel Hemrick. But that's an equipment thing, and that's a talent thing for Derek Kraus. And it doesn't mean the next gen car or this current package or whatever. Come on, dude. Come on. You're the only driver making it that bad, and you say it right after you spun yourself out and wrecked 3 other drivers.
Yeah. So I'm going to piggyback off you because that's going to be my whine about it, because I didn't really I could talk about the broadcast of Fox, but that's become a tired issue for me. You know how they pass for the lead happening and they go to commercial. What the fuck are you doing? Anyway.
God.
But yeah, so going back to Kraus. And again, shout out to Luva Bella Winery, shout out to Brew Kettle sponsoring this segment, the show. One, I don't even know who Derek Kraus is. I don't watch many truck races, and even if I did, I still probably wouldn't know who he is. 4 top 5s in 76 Truck Series starts. I don't know why this kid's in the Cup Series, to be honest with you. 2, at what point did he even have an opportunity to fucking pass somebody? He out-qualified what that car should have qualified. He started 26th. You had no business starting 26th, and you wrecked on lap 3, 4, or 6. Yeah. It was before lap 10. At what point do you have an opportunity to pass anybody? You were getting passed because you're not good, and neither is your car. So I don't even see how he could possibly even comment on the passing because he wasn't in a position to pass anybody. And again,
No.
like I'm with you. Like
I'm pulling up the lap by lap data right now because now I'm very curious.
I'm pretty sure the wreck was on lap 6, and he started 26th. And Cindric started behind him, and Cindric actually had a decent car. So he was getting passed. LaJoy started behind him. Josh Berry started behind him. So he had Kyle Busch started behind him. Austin Dillon started behind him. You had all these very good drivers. I use that term loosely with some of those. But you had these definitely faster cars behind him. There's no way that Derek Cross was trying to pass anybody.
To your point. Lap number 1, he was running 25th, which is like what he started, okay? Lap number 2, he was running 24th. We can just chalk it up to a restartness. Plus, if you say you can't pass, well, you did pass somebody. Lap number 3, he lost 2 spots from lap 2 to lap 3. He went from 24th to 26th. That means people could pass, right?
Yeah.
Because you literally lost 2 spots. Lap number 5, he falls to 27th. So somebody passed you again. To your point about not being able to pass, people are passing you. In lap number 6, you wrecked. That's it. That's your whole fucking log. I mean, obviously, he ran more laps later after getting repairs and stuff, but at that point, nobody cares. You're already broken. You're running laps that were 2 miles an hour slower, 3 miles an hour slower, 4 miles an hour slower than your opening laps there. And it's not because of the tires. It's because your car was broken.
Mm-hmm.
So he disproves his own point by passing on lap 1, getting passed twice on the next lap, and getting passed once 2 laps later, and then wrecking.
Amazing, isn't it?
His whole race was passing and then wrecking.
Yeah. Oh, again, yeah. No offense, but I don't pay attention to Truck Series, but I don't know who this guy is, and to have that big of a take is something. But I think it's just the college racing way, like you said, trophy hunting. I don't know what fucking trophies they're hunting for. They're not going to find any wherever they're at. But
unless it's AJ Allmendinger or SVG at a road course right now, or a random lucky luck box draft win, That's it. Those are the only trophies they're hunting right now. So it's unbelievable. You made a great point there. Like, well, who are you even passing? I mean, technically he even did pass somebody, but it was on a restart, and then he dropped straight back. Like, what in the fuck, dude? And I know I'm the guy bitching about a guy complaining who's in the Cup Series, and I'm not. I'm well aware of that. I'm not saying I'm good at driving. I'm just saying you have no reason to complain about passing if A, passing is happening, and B, you don't have the ability to pass because you suck. And maybe Derek Kraus will evolve to be a good driver. I hope he does. I wish him the best. I'm not here wishing ill will on anyone. We're just whining about something because we found something he said pretty asinine. And that's it. I'm not a Daniel Kraus hater. Like you said, I barely even know who the guy is. I don't really consider myself a truck or Xfinity expert. I watch some of the races, probably more than half. It's not my thing, truck or Xfinity, but I do watch them. But like I said, more than half, probably most. But I mean, more than half technically is most, but I mean like a good majority. But I don't like sit there and get in all the details of every driver or whatever. I just kind of watch it because it's the weekend and I like racing. But I don't know.
I'll turn it on.
I don't have anything against Derek Kraus. Nothing against him. But I don't think he's a great driver at this point in his career. I hope he becomes great. I'm rooting for him. No hate against him, just hate against his comments.
Yeah. I had to pull up where he was in practice, and he was dead last, 0.7 off the pace.
Yeah.
So shout out Derek Kraus. Shout out Luvabella Winery for sponsoring this podcast. That will be the Wine About It segment for this weekend, and we are moving on to Bristol. Not Bristol Dirt. For the first time in the next-gen era, the spring race at Bristol is not on Bristol Dirt, which I can't be happier about.
Thank fucking God.
I will note this. We both had very good weekends at Phoenix betting wise.
Yeah.
I know you hit Christopher Bell live. I hit Christopher Bell live. I hit Buescher top Ford, Chastain top Chevy. I will say I probably lucked into that one, but
I gave
win.
Chastain top Chevy on Friday on Green Dot Daily on the Action Network. Christopher Bell victory lane for me and Stevie on Running Hot for 5 out of 6 winners on that specific victory lane pick. There are like mine and Stevie's combined pick, or I should say bet. Because sometimes we're not picking the winner. We're just picking our favorite bet. But we fucking slayed it. But not just us. I mean, Greg, right, up 11 or 12 units. The win the race guys.
Yeah.
There's so many other guys. Dale Tanhart had a great race. Like, that's what we love. We love when the community can win, and the community recognized this spot, and they slayed it, and that's awesome. And that's why we always preach, listen to the collective mind. And I'm sure not everybody in the community won, and that's okay, because there are times when the community wins and it's not me, and I'm the loser, and that's totally cool too. That's totally fine. But yeah, we fucking slayed it, dude.
Yeah, I was very happy with that, how that race turned out, and was ready to move on to Bristol. And typically, when I have a very good week, it's a confidence booster. Like when you have a good week and your analysis is totally on point, it's a confidence booster. Like it's hard not to. 100%. And typically I get super confident the next week. I usually maybe get a little more aggressive with my bets, get more aggressive with fantasy. I'll tell you what, though. I'm excited for Bristol. I like Bristol.
I know exactly where you're going with this.
Yeah, I like Bristol. I like watching it. I like betting on Bristol. I like fantasy on Bristol.
Mm-hmm.
I have not made a single bet for Bristol. It is Tuesday night. I have not made a single bet. I have looked and I've seen things that I like, but I have not made a single bet for Bristol, because I'm a little nervous of what this is going to be like. This makes me nervous.
I knew exactly, because I do too. I have no idea what to expect. I will straight up no fucking clue what to expect.
Because we haven't raced here in the spring.
All I'm doing
or during
is
the
trusting.
day.
Yeah, exactly. But what I'm doing, and I've literally made, what is it, 3 or 4? You can look in the app, outright bets.
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. But I'm trusting my intuition and instincts even more than my model, because one of them may have even been against my model. I'll go through them here. We'll talk about it in a little bit, but and I need to pull up the app on my phone and stuff, because half the time I don't even remember what I bet, because I bet so much shit sometimes with basketball and all that other stuff. But I'm A, trusting my instincts, B, trusting my model, C, talking to you, Greg, Jim, all these guys that are very smart and know what they're doing, and forming what I think are reasonably taked opinions, even if I'm not reasonably confident in them. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I'm not confident.
Yeah.
I don't know if Chase Briscoe is going to be good, but I feel like, based off what Chris Buescher did and what I've seen from Chase Briscoe at this track and at driver-centric tracks, let's call them, and what Stewart Haas Racing has done this year, specifically him and Gregson, that 100-1 is reasonable. I don't even know if it's a good bet or not. Honestly, I believe it is. My model says it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's a good bet or not. And I, like you, I have no fucking idea what to expect at Bristol here. I'm going to straight up say it. I don't know. And if you're asking me to be the knowledge wizard, I don't have the knowledge wizard for Bristol, especially with this new body for Toyota and new body for Ford. My personal opinion, I don't think it's going to matter. I think good drivers at Bristol are good drivers at Bristol. And typically that's what my model says. My model very strongly pulls in, and I don't choose the factors in my model. There's something called a feature selection algorithm. If you're new to listening, Stacking Dennys this year, I've talked about it in years past, but I don't think I've yet to mention it this year. There's something called a feature selection algorithm, which is a method for finding the most important variables to build a model off of. And the 2 most important variables for building a model off of for Bristol are what's your current form and how good are you at Bristol. And it doesn't matter what car you've been in, or if the car has changed, or the arrow has changed, or the rules have changed. If you're good at Bristol, you're good at Bristol. That's basically what this says. And then it factors in current form. It weighs a few other things really minorly that'll affect maybe, you know, some tiebreaker-ish type things between drivers. But by and large, my handicap is how's your current form and how are you at Bristol, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's it. And so for me, a guy like, let's say Eric Jones, which I know people have bet, I like that bet. I like it at 50 or 60 to 1 because
too,
his current form is good. And while he's not been good at Bristol recently, it's partly because he hasn't been in great cars.
Yep.
We just saw him kick fucking ass at Phoenix. You know, I mean, he was top 5 car until traffic and bumpers and all this stuff came into play. He used to be really damn good at Bristol in the JGR car. So,
yep.
You know, I definitely, I haven't tracked it, but I have definitely sprinkled Eric Jones 50, 60 to 1. I think it was 60 to 1 when he opened. It was a sprinkle. It wasn't one I tracked because I didn't want like people to tail because I wasn't like, I'm confident in this bet. This was, I'm sprinkling it because I want to have a little bit of fun and gamble.
Yeah. So yeah. Plus, you know, Eric Jones was very good here at Bristol last year, even in that shit car. Like he ran well for where he was last year. And like you said, he was very good. He's another one of those where I'm seeing, like, obviously I pay attention to what everyone else bets and where everyone else is at. That's another bet that I saw, you know, that I was like, oh, I could see myself making that. I'm still not though. But I'm not gonna sit here and say that's a bad bet at all. I could see myself making it. I just haven't. Same with Briscoe. I could have easily pulled the trigger on Briscoe. I was about to at 100 to 1. It moved before I could. Like it was at 100 to 1. I clicked it. I went to like log in and then it moved to 80. And I was like, I don't want it that bad, you know?
Sure.
But yeah, it's just one of those weeks, and maybe it'll change after practice and qualifying, which they're doing practice and qualifying on Saturday night, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of a pain in the ass, honestly.
It really puts a crunch on guys like us where we have to get to it works for me because I have something going on Saturday afternoon, so it allows me to not skip that and still do my content. But to me, it's like that's just another kind of unknown this weekend because now they're practicing at night. They're going to race during the day. We haven't raced during the day at Bristol with this next gen car.
Yeah.
There's a lot of variables, plus just the overall unpredictability of Bristol, because what we've seen with this next gen car, a lot of tire issues, a lot of mechanical issues, and blown engines. You can't predict that shit. And I think that's another reason I'm gun shy this week to bet on Bristol and to really, especially early in the week. Like right now, I can almost guarantee I'm not going to bet anything heading into the weekend until I see cars on track.
Yeah, I definitely understand that mindset. And I was kind of that way. And then I was like, I looked into it more and I'm like, yeah, I can't not bet Blaney at 16 to 1. I think I tracked him at 15 or whatever. I bet him at 16. I moved the line to 14 at BetMGM. So I tracked him at 15 at Caesars. And I was fine with that because I think I'd still bet him at 14. But I just look at all the Blaney data at Bristol and I'm like, I don't really care what car he's in. I don't really care what equipment he's in. I don't really care. He's so good. He had a bad race, the most recent Bristol race, but you look at the first next gen race, he kicked ass until his tire blew on lap 91. That wasn't his fault. That wasn't a speed issue. That was him kicking ass. But Ford had Ford just had ridiculous tire issues in the 2022 race. Right off the bat, Harrison Burton and J.J. Yaley, who Yaley was then in the Ware Ford, blew a tire on the same lap on like lap 41 or 42. And then Austin Cindric and Ryan Blaney blew a tire on the same lap or I think it was Almirola and Blaney blew tires in the same lap on like lap 91. Cindric blew a tire. Logano eventually had a tire issue. Keselowski had a tire issue when he was going to win the race. I mean, all of Ford, it seemed like, other than Buescher and Harvick, had tire issues. But that's the thing. I don't think that's going to happen because last year we didn't have the plethora of tire issues. We had 6 cautions, I think it was last year. I think it was pretty tame last year, relatively speaking. So I think this could be a tame race. It just depends on, does the new body affect things for the Ford or the Toyota? Does that change the load on the tires? Because tire load is a thing at Bristol. It's certainly Goodyear got a better grasp on it, and especially Ford as well. Got a better grasp on it in 2023, but that doesn't mean the body changes now with the way aerodynamics work and stuff isn't going to affect the loads on the tires. I don't know. But what I do know is I don't really think the body changes are going to matter a ton at Bristol. You know, we talk about the new body for Phoenix or the new body for Las Vegas for the Toyotas and the Fords. My opinions, I don't think it's going to matter as much. We've seen Matt DiBenedetto nearly win the race in a shitbox car. We've seen Ricky Stenhouse Jr. finish top 5 multiple times in either RFK equipment or early JGR or JTG equipment. Like, guys who are good here, and they can finish well here. So I'm less concerned about equipment, tire, era, whatever. I don't care. Day, night, I don't give a shit. I think if you're good at Bristol, you're good at Bristol.
Yeah, I'm not disputing that. I'm just, from a shit happening aspect, I think there's a lot there that can.
Oh yeah, I agree with that.
But that's also the case.
I think if you're bad at Bristol, you're bad at Bristol. Like, I'm not taking Martin Truex Jr. for anything here.
Yeah, Martin. Yeah, Truex just. I mean, he's had flashes of looking decent, but overall not very good at Bristol.
In 13 races in the 40 car era at Bristol, he has had 3 races that have had what I would call top 10 ability. And when I say that, if you plot a logistic regression of top 10 finishes versus percent of laps run in the top 15, you need about 76% of laps run in the top 15 to finish in the top 10 as a break-even proposition, right? So it would be even money on either side. You would need to run about 76% of the laps that you ran in the top 15. Well, he's only done that in 3 of 13 races in the 40-car era. And that's all in championship caliber equipment. So that's a Truex thing. I'm not high on Truex this weekend. He's not good here. Can he? Obviously can. He's done it 3 times, but 3 out of 13 isn't a bet I'm willing to make. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Even given his current form, and I actually don't even think he's anywhere near his peak current form. I think he's obviously very good, but I don't think he's near his career peak form.
One guy that is very good at Bristol that I want to talk about here. I'm with you on Truex, and going into this weekend, there's 3 main or tri favorites. Larson's favorite at plus 550, Hamlin's at plus 600, and Christopher Bell's at 625. And then you have to go, and then it jumps down to Blaney at 12-1, Keselowski 12-1, Byron 14-1. And Larson's stats here are just ridiculous. Started 36th here last fall, finished 2nd, still led 20 laps, 8th and 3rd in the stages. Just Larson kicks the shit out of this track and should be the 100%. Favorite this weekend. One guy that has not ran well here that I could see myself betting this. If I'm going to place a bet, it's probably going to be this. He has 8 career wins at Bristol. And like you said, we are in the intermediate package this week. And he looked very, very fast at Las Vegas in this intermediate package, sitting at 18-1 on Bet365.
Rowdy.
Kyle Busch. Yeah. Kyle Busch. I actually really like that. He got bet down at other books.
I think that's smart. I think that's smart. I think that's you're making me think because I haven't really been on him this week. I honestly think that's smart.
You know what tipped me off the most? I forgot that they were running the intermediate package this week. I did.
I didn't. I didn't really care. I
think that shifts a little bit more to Chevy. So I like Larson a lot. Like even more. Like obviously I liked him before, but now Kyle Busch, Chase Elliott. I think he's very good here.
I don't really care about if Chevy's going to be better here or not because it doesn't matter as much at Bristol. I'm not sitting here being like, well, Las Vegas should imply Bristol because in my model it doesn't. Like when and again, I'm not choosing the factors. The algorithm itself, the one that is choosing the most statistically significant models is not saying, well, pull in Las Vegas or intermediate data or whatever. And it's never pulled in that kind of stuff. In fact, funny enough, the 2 things it weighs in terms of like the most relevant tracks, I guess. Obviously Dover, but it's still not very heavy. And ironically enough, Richmond. And
Really?
you know how I look at the correlations, and that's just me looking at correlations. The algorithm itself picked out Richmond. Again, from a statistical algorithm, not me choosing this. Look who won 2022. Chris Buescher. You know where he was good at? Dover and Richmond.
Yep.
And that led into, and guess who else was? Brad Keselowski. And that led into Bristol. And I noticed it that year. I was saying, Bristol has a lot of correlation with Dover and Richmond. We even probably talked about it on this podcast, maybe. I don't know if it started by then, but I think it was late enough in the year where we had in 2022. And Chris Buescher was good. So, yeah, I just think that's super interesting. I don't really care about the package or the Las Vegas or the whatever. Like 90 to 95% of my evaluation this week is going to be current form and Bristol form.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll, like I said, things like Dover or Richmond will influence me. I don't think Las Vegas is going to influence me. But I do get what you're saying with Rowdy. He's fucking great at Bristol, right? You know what I mean? Like, that's a great point. Like, why am I overlooking a guy who has won 8 times at Bristol? I shouldn't be. Thank you for slapping that sense into me.
You're welcome. You know who qualified second in both Richmond races last year, finished third in the summer race?
Who?
KFB, Kyle fucking Busch.
No fucking way. Let's go.
I'm talking myself more and more into Kyle Busch right now.
What about Dover? Oh my god.
Dover last year for Rowdy started on the pole, led 25 laps and finished 21st. I don't know what happened there, but oh man.
Yeah, I'll have to go back and look into that. Fuck, dude.
I might bet Kyle Busch right now, to be honest with you.
I still like the Blaney bet better, but yeah, you're talking me into this Kyle Busch bet.
Something all week has just eaten at me. People aren't talking about Kyle Busch when he fucking.
You talked about the big three in terms of the betting odds, which are Larson, Hamlin, and Bell. For my model, Larson and Hamlin are 1-2 clear. Third in my model is Blaney. So yeah, and I think it makes sense. Good here. Blaney's got 3. He's the only one with 3 top 5s this year. He's run well. I mean, he hasn't fluked into the top 5s, at least in terms of the non-drafting packages, right? Like, you have to earn those top 5 finishes. Even if you're not a top 5 speed, you have to be close enough with the way these races have gone in top 5 in speed to finish top 5. But he was also passing cars at the end to get into the top 5. Like, for me, this is a pretty big Blaney race, I think. And I know he's always sucked at Richmond, which is one, it's one of those. That's the reason it's like a minor factor. But
it makes no sense why he sucks at Richmond.
It's a minor factor, and B, he's getting better at Richmond. But then, like, he's been pretty good at, not amazing, but like okay at Dover. That's why I'm always like Dover and Richmond are like minor factors. I look at it, I consider it because the correlation makes a lot of sense. But Bristol performance trumps all, and Blaney in 9 starts with Team Penske at Bristol, 3 races of at least 100 laps led, 5 races of at least 40 laps led, and that doesn't count the race where he drove from 6th to 1st to take the lead and then blew a tire on lap 91 and had the fastest flags up to that point and the fastest lap of the race up to that point. So really, like 6 out of 9 races, nice. He has been pretty damn good at Bristol.
I'm betting Kyle Busch right now.
Oh, baby, no. Jordan Jinx is in.
Jordan Jinx is in. It's officially in. 18-1. It's in. But no. You and I have we've spent like when the 2 years that I qualified for the Fantasy Racing World Championship and the King of the Speedway, it came down to Bristol. And you and I spent significant time really looking at the data, and Ryan Blaney, comparative to his laps ran and the fastest laps, was off the charts at Bristol always. He was always off the charts. Yeah. So, yeah, this is definitely a Blaney track, and if he just doesn't have any issues, he's going to contend for the win. Like, there's no doubt in my mind. Am I betting him 12-1 right now? I might by the end of this episode, to be honest. I walked in here saying, or whatever. I came in here saying I'm not betting anything, and well, I've already broken that, so I might as well fucking bet another one. But yeah, 2 top 5s in 14 starts for Blaney is very misleading for how good he is at this racetrack. Ryan Blaney is one of the best at Bristol. He's just ran into a shit ton of bad luck.
Yeah, I agree with that. Oh man, this is an interesting race. This is an interesting race.
and I want to know your thoughts on the RFK guys because I really like them this week. Like I want to bet them this week.
I bet.
Are you there? Do you think that
I bet Kez 20?
Yeah,
and I tracked it at 16 again because so. And this is like I always encounter these situations where it's like, well, I like him, I bet him, I didn't track him, and it's been for various reasons. So the reason I didn't track him this time is because I was trying to help everybody in getting a 20-1 number because I bet him 20-1 and I did not move the line, and this was at Westgate Superbook. And typically, I actually won't move the line if I bet him at Westgate Superbook because it's a big enough book that my action's not going to move the line. And so I held out on tracking it. Because there are people that follow me that live in Las Vegas. So I was waiting until it came out in the other Superbook states before I tracked it, right? So that I could give other people a chance to bet it at 20-1. Whereas if I nuked it, if I tracked it and then all the Las Vegas people bet it and moved it, you wouldn't get a chance to get it at 20-1. And I stepped away from my computer. I was doing other things. And by the time I came back and saw that Superbook had it, it was 16-1 in the other states. Apparently, it did open at 20-1 at Superbook in the other states because Greg was going to bet it. Greg Mathern was going to bet it at Superbook without me ever talking to him. And the same thing happened to him. He saw it, had to put down his phone for a bit, came back to his phone, and it was 16 by the time it was back. So I am not allowed by my rules to track a stale line, an unavailable line, so I had to track it at 16. But I still liked it at 16. I would have bet Kez down. I think I put it in my note. I bet Kez down to 14. So, yeah. So I love Keselowski this weekend. He's in, like I said, we talked to people. Both Jim, Sonis, and I are relatively high on Brad Keselowski, and you know, we were above market value on 20-1. I don't exactly remember. I don't have my, discussions with him up on where we were on Kez for his number, but my number is definitely still showing value at all the way down to 14-1.
Another guy that's been very fast here lately, and I know that a few people have bet him. He opened at 18-1. Another guy that I was looking at, and I was like, gosh, that looks tasty. Again, didn't bet it. 0 laps led in all of his career starts at Bristol, though. Do you think Tyler Reddick can compete this weekend? Again, recent form, big proponent of Bristol success. However, 1 top 10 in 5 Bristol starts. Hasn't really ran that great. He was good here in 2020, but that's about it. What do we think about Tyler Reddick this week?
Well, and part of it does pull in, he only has a handful of races at Bristol in the Cup Series. So when I pull in his Xfinity data and look at his track quality here, it is very good. So that boosts him. But I'll let it. I don't like when Tyler Reddick beats me because I like Carl Larson or like Ty Gibbs right now. I wanted to be on him before he won, which is why I was on him at Road America the year he broke out on his road course win. I wanted to be on Reddick before he beat me, but he's had his wins now. I'm willing to let him beat me on this one, even though I know he'll get better at Bristol. I know he'll get better at Martinsville, those kinds of tracks. It's a little different situation because there are drivers that are just really good at Bristol, Larson, Bell, etc. And Reddick's been fine. He's had speed at times at Bristol. He's never really dominated at Bristol, and that's and it's one thing. Oh, well, you bet on Chris Buescher, you never dominate Bristol. Yeah, I bet I'm on 125-1, not 18-1.
Right.
Right. So it's like It's not quite the Martinsville show me first, you know, where I've always said, like, Martinsville, you got to show me you're good at Martinsville before I bet on you at Martinsville. It's not quite that. I can certainly see a path to Reddick, just a driver-centric track like this, which, to be fair, Martinsville is too, but I'm just not quite there. Can he win this? Absolutely. May I regret not betting him? Of course. I just like other bets better.
You know where Reddick has been, and I know we're going to get this question. This is why I'm bringing it up. Where Reddick has been dominant is Bristol Dirt.
Mm-hmm.
How much does that matter this weekend? The two Bristol Dirt races.
It doesn't not matter, but again, it's pretty minor. It's a very different style of racing. A lot of the guys that are good at Bristol Concrete are good at Bristol Dirt and vice versa. But there is a difference. There is. But we do see, you know, Christopher Bell is good at both. Kyle Larson's good at both. I don't know. I guess that's
Austin Dillon's really good at dirt and not very good at...
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. is good at both. Let's put that out there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, we see those guys, but it's not as many as we think, right? Like, who else can I, off the top of my head, be like, this guy's good at both dirt and the concrete version? And I can't really think of many others. Just because Joey Logano won one of the dirt races here doesn't mean I think he's a dirt expert because he sucked the next 2 years of the dirt and, you know, that kind of thing. Suarez was good the first year. Truex was good the first year on the dirt, but then they weren't really good when it turned into... The second and third year dirt were so much different than the first year dirt based on the way they prepped that track. So... I don't know.
You know who won the second dirt race?
Rowdy, but yeah, that was
Kyle fucking Busch.
Yeah, that was a little,
yeah, that was the Chase Briscoe ending.
Yeah, exactly. And then last year wasn't
Chase Briscoe went and killed it. Yeah, Bell won it last year.
Yeah. I don't have it in front of me. That's just my memory. So
yeah,
but again, like, Rowdy didn't really go out and win that race. He wasn't bad by any means. He didn't really go out and win that race. It was Chase Briscoe, who's fine here, and I did bet him at 100 to 1, but that's what I'm talking about. And Jim made a great tweet about it. Like, he was like, here's all these things about Chris Buescher, and here's all these things about Chase Briscoe, and there's a lot of similarities there. There's certainly differences. Chris Buescher, I think, ran a lot better leading up to that Bristol race than Briscoe has been running leading up to this Bristol race. But Briscoe also hasn't been bad. I mean, he literally just had 2 races in a row where he had times where he either ran or finished inside the top 10. So I think it's similar enough that I liked that Briscoe 100 to 1. But I'm not really pulling in, you know, so to speak, Bristol Dirt.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just know that there's going to be people out there that are going to be like, well, this guy won on Bristol Dirt. It's such a different track. Like, very minimal. It's almost like, you know, we talked last week about Phoenix and people that use Martinsville as a comparison. It's really not like it.
Yeah,
it's so minimal that, yeah, you don't, not a very good idea to do that. So, man, I'm talking myself more and more into Kyle Busch. I know. How's this going to backfire on me?
I know.
When literally probably a half hour ago I was saying I'm not betting until I see guys on track, and now I'm sitting with a Rowdy ticket. Oh well, I'm fine with it. What do we think? So obviously, you know, we talked about Briscoe. People got him at 100 to 1. I know you also bet Stenhouse 150 to 1, and that's your, you know, you made in your notes that's your typical throwing money away on Stenhouse at Bristol, because this is a pretty good track for him. Like,
yeah,
he's won here before. I think there was a 4-race stretch where he finished top 5 at Bristol. Like, the guy's not bad here. That's another one of those bets that I'm like, I could see myself making that. I didn't, but I could have. You know,
I don't even necessarily recommend the Stenhouse bet, even though I tracked it. It's just one of those, like, I would kick myself if I didn't, because of the flashes he has shown at Bristol throughout his career.
I was wrong. He hasn't won here.
No, I think maybe an Xfinity or something. He's not won here, but he has like a couple top 4s, in some other 6th places or whatever, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
In Roush equipment, that wasn't as good as it is now. You know, He was in that lackluster Roush period, and then he was in JTG stuff. So he's good here. I don't know. I mean, it's one of those. I will always bet him here in this race and probably lose money for every single race he runs in his career at this race. But I don't care. I'm willing to do that because of his upside at this racetrack.
Yeah, I'm with you there.
I don't really have strong feelings on it. Like, I'm not like woo woo rah rah Stenhouse, but he's good here. He is. Will he have bad races?
He did finish 10th here last fall.
Yeah, but will he have bad races? Absolutely. He'll have terrible races here. But I'm not worried about the terrible races. I'm worried about the upside when I'm betting on a win bet. Yeah. Now, when I'm betting a top 10 bet like Martin Truex Jr., I'm less worried about the upside. I'm worried about the consistency. Martin Truex Jr. doesn't have that. So it's different strokes, right? Like, Truex has the upside to win Bristol. Sure. I don't think he will ever, but does he technically have the upside to win Bristol? Yes, we've seen it. He's led 100 laps here, I think, once in his career. But I'm not betting him for a top 10 when that's a consistency bet, and he's not consistent here.
Right. I'm looking at top 10 odds right now, and there's a couple that are sticking out to me that I like. Again, Briscoe, like you said, 100 to 1. He's sitting at plus 250 on Caesars for a top 10. I like that. I also like Michael McDowell again this week. I'm a big McDowell fan lately. But you look at McDowell, 6th here last fall, 11th the year before. He was 10th here in 2020, 14th in the first 2020 race. How that team's running right now, again, recent performance. I'm scared to once again miss out on McDowell.
My issue
after
with
last
McDowell
week
is there's a lot of guys I like here. Why would I like McDowell more than Noah Gregson, Chase Briscoe, who are slightly longer, at least at Caesars? I have Caesars open right now. Carson Hocevar.
Yeah.
Ricky Stenhouse Jr. Or a guy I'm really interested in, AJ Allmendinger.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why would I bet McDowell at 230 when I can bet Allmendinger at 6? And I know McDowell certainly is better, has better equipment, all that stuff, but this is a great AJ Allmendinger track. If you go look at his
finished 7th here in 2022.
He has multiple top 10s. He won here in the Xfinity Series. This is a good track for AJ Allmendinger. And I don't mind betting him 6-1 right now for a top 10. I was considering 7-1. It's moved since to 6-1. I have model value on it 6-1. So I might bet it. I haven't yet. I'm considering it. But we'll see. I don't know. But like, I don't want to bet McDowell 230 or whatever it is, 2 something when I could bet AJ Allmendinger or Ricky Stenhouse Jr. or Carson Hocevar or Noah Gregson or Chase Briscoe at longer odds. It just doesn't. Yeah. And that's part of the problem. You and I said, like, we don't feel confident about this race. Why am I going to feel confident about Michael McDowell at plus 230?
I see no reason to. Like I said, I'm not betting it.
Yeah.
Only bet I'm doing is Kyle. Like, that one's already locked in. Kyle Busch to win.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
that's the thing. All I've made is outright bets. I haven't made a single other bet than the outright bets I've made. I don't know. This is part of it's the market. Like, I feel like the market is pretty decently shaped here at this point in the week, in terms of what I expect, and I don't think it's off by that much. There's, like I said, there's certain spots, maybe Allmendinger top 10, that kind of stuff, but that's like that. Plus, I just don't really feel strongly about this race in terms of like where, especially compared to last week, where I was like, hammer Christopher Bell, hammer Christopher Bell, hammer Christopher Bell. You know what I mean? I don't have those strong takes here. Bristol's always a wild card. It really is. You never know. Like, you don't know what you're going to get with Bristol. You don't know if it's going to be the year Matt DiBenedetto dominates the race and barely loses, or if it's going to be the year Kyle Larson dominates the race. And we're all like, well, why the fuck did we just not bet Kyle Larson?
Right. And
I just don't know.
It goes back to, Phoenix, very predictable. Mm-hmm. Bristol adds in those layers of uncertainty. And that's why we get these, long shot bets that aren't bad bets because there's always that possibility. Whereas Phoenix, it's really not likely that you're going to get a long shot winner at Phoenix. And
Right.
we saw this last weekend. Bell opened in double digits, but after practice he was the favorite. Him and Hamlin were the favorites, and those two. I mean, you could throw Reddick in there, but those three had the best cars. Maybe Truex in there for 4, but
or Gibbs or whatever. There were guys. Oh yeah, but it wasn't like
they were there.
It wasn't. Yeah, we know what you mean. But you bring up a great point when you talk about predictability. My model for all the races I do, I look at all my best fit models and all that stuff. Bristol's the least predictable track outside of the drafting tracks.
Yep.
Even though we get a lot of green flag runs at Bristol and typically finish under green, it's still the least predictable. Because so much, like you said, so much shit happens at Bristol. Whether it's blown tires, blown engines, crashes, strategy. There's a lot of strategy that comes into Bristol. I watched that Blaney race back in 2022 because, he didn't win. Buescher won. But that race, because I was curious about Blaney's speed before I bet him and stuff, there was so fucking much strategy in that race. Remember how Buescher won? He was the only one that took 2 tires and then just stayed out in front. And Kevin Harvick was like, well, we had to win to advance to the next round. We took 4 tires and just were stuck in like 3rd or 4th place. Why wasn't Harvick the one taking 2 tires to get in front and play strategy? His only shot to advance was to win, and they didn't do that. So it's like, Bristol's insane, dude. There's so many periods where you can pit or not pit or whatever. The strategy in Bristol is unreal. And that's why everything is so shaken up at Bristol, and it's why it's so hard to predict.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those weeks where I don't see how anybody can say that they're super confident. Like,
no,
if you are, I just don't see how it's possible. Any other long shots you like in this week? Catching your eye?
No, I've thought about Todd Gilliland because he has 2 good finishes here, but he hasn't run amazing here. And right. he did improve every year in the Truck Series here, but I'm not quite there. I understand, the Penske Alliance or whatever, Tier 1, all that shit with Ford, and I'm not quite there. But I'm willing to observe practice and get him at a worse price. You know what I mean? Because I don't think his price will get that much better either. Where he'll still be a long shot even if he practices really well.
Yeah. I'm kind of looking at recent results here. I'm going to go back to, and this is one of the favorites. Obviously, I like Kyle Busch this week. I think Larson's definitely the favorite, but something in me says that this is the week Ty Gibbs gets it done.
I'll tell you what. I think my model's too high on him, but Ty Gibbs is in the top 5 in win probability in my model, and I completely disagree with it. But so I ran a model earlier this week. It was my quick and dirty, and it wasn't showing value on him at 14-1 or 16-1 or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
My new model is, but I don't trust it. I do not trust it.
Yeah.
Like my real model is. I don't like it, but I agree with you. I mean, he was really good here last year. He's. I don't trust it. I don't like it.
There's no way I'm betting him at 14-1.
No, fuck no, never. I would bet him only if there was a 2 in front of the number. Yeah, I'm not even sure I would. Right where I'm at. I'm not even sure I would then.
Even if he goes out and he shows top 5 speeds all of practice.
Yeah.
And he's still, if he would still be sitting there at 14-1, I wouldn't bet it.
I agree. And I want to bet on Ty Gibbs before he wins, but I don't want to do it this week. It's so weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know Ty Gibbs is going to win. I want to have a bet on him when he does it, but I'm not betting him at 14-1.
No. I'm not. I can't. I can't on principle. I don't. Just because of the fact I don't feel confident about this race at all. I feel confident Blaney at 16 was a good bet, even if he stinks up the joint, because of how often he has not stunk up the joint here and the upside he has shown. But I'm I don't feel super confident about Bristol.
No. Oh. Anybody else you want to touch on here for Bristol?
I'm perusing through. I mean, Ross is Ross. He has upside. Not really high on anybody else. Like, you know, Hocevar cracked 1% win probability for me this week.
I was looking at matchups, and Hocevar minus 120 over Josh Berry. I like that.
I may have been saving that one.
My bad.
Keeping that in the back pocket. You're good. I'm quite certain that won't be available now. The same thing happened last week. I was like, there was one I was saving, and then it moved by the time Running Hot came around. So I'm officially betting that. Hocevar minus 120 over Josh Berry. That's an official bet. I'll try to track it when when Stacking Dennys drops tomorrow morning. But same like last week, you published it before I woke up, so I didn't get to track it.
Oh.
So whatever it was last week that I bet, I think it was those over/under win positions on Truex and Larson.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
I'm trying to save those for like when this podcast drops, so I don't move the line before then. But then you, and it's not a criticism of you or anything. I'm just not a morning person, and I'm also on Pacific time, so I tend not to wake up the earliest. And by the time I woke up, it was already 5.5 Larson and 10.5 Truex instead of 4.5 and 11.5. And I get to the Action Network Discord and like, oh, you guys listen to Stacking Dennys. This was the bets. So this is what it is. So yeah, I'm officially betting Carson Hocevar minus 120. I'll try to, I wish there was a way I could like set, maybe I'll bring this up to the guys at Action Network. There's a way I can set this to track at 7 a.m. Eastern time tomorrow or whatever, you know. It's like we agreed to publish the pod at a certain time or something. It's funny. But it's
I'm
always
betting this too.
It's always the burden of being a content creator and wanting to help everybody is trying to get as many people to get the bet in as I can, but I also have to A, take care of myself, and B, worry about my content schedule for tracking these bets. So it is what it is. Yeah, I've bet Hocevar minus 120 over Josh Berry.
I'm doing it right now.
Oops. I just clicked the button in our thing here. I didn't know what the hell I was clicking. See? Jordan's betting and I'm screwing up the podcast. Good times. I'm trying to figure out. There we go. All right, I got it. So yeah, go ahead.
If you don't have anything else, we got to move on to our 36 for 36.
36 for 36. There we go. This is good. You took Ryan Blaney, which I almost took myself. And then I took Chase Briscoe. And you scored 41 points with Ryan Blaney, which is super good. That's better than, I think, a win itself, right? Because he got some stage points and had a top 5 finish. But I scored 30 points with Chase Briscoe, which I was really happy about. I think he got 28 for his finishing position or something, and then 2 for stage points. So I only lost 11 points to you, which for me I'm pleased about because you definitely took the superior, expectation driver. And so right now I'm ahead 97 to 93 after 4 races. You have used Blaney, the 15 car from Daytona, which I think was Riley Herbst at the time, the 48 of Alex Bowman, and the 51 of Justin Haley at Atlanta. And I have used the 48 of Alex Bowman, the same race as you at Las Vegas. I used the 7 of LaJoy at Atlanta. I used the 31 of Daniel Hemrick at Daytona. And also, like you, I used Bowman at Vegas, and then I used Briscoe this past weekend. So on aggregate, I think we're pretty close on like the quality of drivers we've used. You've used 2 wear cars, whereas I've used, more like a LaJoy and a Hemrick. compared to your wear cars. So mine are definitely better, but I also think, obviously, I'm picking wear cars at some point at drafting tracks. So I think it'll wash out. So pretty even here, I would say, on our standings. What do you think?
I agree. Yeah. I think I might regret using Blaney that early, but at the same time, my strategy last week was I want a pretty sure bet at a top 5, and to me that's Ryan Blaney.
Yeah.
And I don't see him dominating anywhere really. So use that while I can, move on, and we'll go on to the next week. I'll be honest with you though, I was thinking about this for quite a while today, and I have no idea quite yet who I'm going to pick. I have a couple guys in my head, but
no clue.
There's so many ways you can go here.
Yeah, there's a lot of ways you can go here, which makes this tough. And I haven't run an optimal model for this or whatever, this, that, and the other. I don't fucking know, dude. And I get to pick first this week, which makes it even harder.
Yep.
Because I don't know what to do. And I'm legitimately just spitballing. And I feel like at some point while we were talking, oh, I know what it was. I feel like I'm going to go Carson Hocevar. And I know that sounds probably dumb, but he's running a full season.
Get out of my head.
And I think I'm not using him at a drafting track because there's 4 other drafting races. I'm probably using the 2 wear cars. I'm probably using maybe like a Harrison Burton and a Todd Gilliland. Mm-hmm. So that's 4 right there. I don't know for sure, but Hocevar has enough talent that I don't need to use him at a drafting track. So I was considering him. And then I think outside of that, I would have to consider, I'm not taking a Larson here because I'm saving him for other tracks. I'm not taking Christopher Bell here because I'm saving him for other tracks. And those are the guys like really good here. So do I take a guy like Stenhouse? Obviously, this is one of his best tracks.
My mind was right there too. I've been thinking Hocevar and Stenhouse all day, although I have considered Hamlin. Or not Hamlin, but Larson.
Yeah, I think Larson's certainly in consideration here. I just like him as well at Darlington and Homestead, right? I mean,
yeah, yep.
You can't really, not play Larson at those. The only other thing with Stenhouse is he's in play for something like a Nashville. So
Iowa.
There's always that. Iowa's an interesting one. Yeah, he was pretty good there in Xfinity, but this is tricky. I'm definitely torn on this. I could see this being a Gregson track as well. Do I use Noah Gregson here?
Yeah, so dude, strike while the iron's hot with Gregson.
I know. That's a great point. But why wouldn't you strike it? If Hocevar's putting up top 15s at these other tracks that he's not quite as good at, why would you take him here? So Carson Hocevar it is. I don't love it, but I don't think I'm going to be super happy with any pick I make here, but I've locked it into our spreadsheet since I have to pick first. Is he the 77 or 71? Zane's 71. Hocevar 77. Make sure I don't track the wrong number here.
Yeah. So you and I have very similar thought process. We really don't know where we want to go here with this game for Bristol, but we're thinking the same guys. Because like I said, I've been thinking...
It goes right along with our mindset of we don't know what the fuck to do,
Yep. Yeah. I'm between Hocevar, Stenhouse, and Gregson. Maybe throwing in a Todd Gilliland here, but just because he, 2 top 20, 16th and 18th in 2 starts. Do I just get Gilligang out of the way as much as I want to use him on the super speedway?
Yeah, I don't know.
But I think the way I hate to do this another week, but I am going to follow your footsteps, and I'm going Hocevar as well. I wanna.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
I don't know how much he's gonna improve. Like, is he gonna? There's no way that Hocevar turns into a weekly top 10 threat this season, in my opinion. So right now he's fringe, mid-teens. Ran 11th here last year, driver rating of 84. That's not a bad race.
Right.
I'm rolling Hocevar as well.
I don't hate it at all. That's why I picked him. So yeah, it's so tough. It's so tough. I didn't know what to do this week. Last week I knew I was coming in with either Briscoe or Blaney. Like I 100% knew. This week you saw it, you heard it. I was spitballing on the fly what I was going to do for this race. And I obviously settled on what I settled on, but it was a tough one. So we're both going Carson Hocevar as our 36 for 36 pick for Bristol Food City 500. The first of 2 Bristol races. That's the other thing, right? That's another factor to consider.
Yeah.
We can still come back to a Stenhouse. We can still come back to a Gregson. We can still come back to a Todd Gilliland. Obviously we can still come back to a Hocevar, but it's just another factor in play is like, well, I don't have to feel like I need to select these guys right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm not questioning my pick, but I'm sticking with it. I'm starting to lean Gregson in my head. That's why I'm
honestly like I'm set on my pick. I'm picking Hocevar, but I also thought maybe I would consider Ty Gibbs at one point.
Really?
Now that I'm remembering what I would have picked, or even like Keselowski. Like where else am I picking Kes?
Yeah, that's another one. Fucking A.
I know.
And honestly,
to be fair, Kes is a guy you could use at like a super speedway just because he has the potential to win a lot.
Yeah.
Even though he doesn't, he certainly always does have the chance to.
Oh man. And even like a Ryan Preece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
like something weird like
Preece
that.
is like basically pegged into Martinsville for me. Especially,
I'm going Gregson. I'm switching to Gregson.
There it is. We got the last minute switch, just like I did last week with Blaney to Briscoe.
Yep.
I like it.
It worked for you last week. You pulled off the top 10. I'm going Gregson. Striking while the iron's hot.
Yeah.
See if the Jordan Jinx comes in and he goes back to 30th in practice on Saturday.
Yeah, that's certainly well within the range of outcomes. No, Ty Gibbs I definitely considered, but I also know how good he is at road courses. And I definitely don't want to eliminate him from road course contention this early in the season.
Yeah, I get that. All right, I got Gregson. You got Hocevar for 36 for 36. We're moving on now to picks to win. Once again, last week, you grab another top 10. You have yet to pick anyone outside of the top 10 this year with your pick to win. Byron, Chastain, Hamlin. You had Reddick last week. Again, one of the best cars. He finished 10th. I had Chastain. He finished 6th. I had Gibbs the week before with a 5th place finish. So I'm starting to get on a little bit of a roll here.
Yeah, we're
starting to get on a little bit of a roll. But I don't have a winner yet. So I'm going to go for a winner this week. Kyle Larson dominates this race. Kyle Larson gets to victory lane on Sunday.
I got to stick with my gut. I'm going Ryan Blaney.
Ryan Blaney.
Yeah. I don't think it's the safest pick I could make. Like I think Larson's a safer pick, or Bell is a safer pick. Maybe even a better pick. I just feel like Blaney's gonna have a good week. You know, his form is good. He's been good at this track 2/3 of the time. Not only good, but kick ass at this track. I'm just rolling with my gut. I could definitely see myself taking, Larson, Bell, those guys as well. Any of these guys from the top of my model, but I'm going to go Ryan Blaney.
Yeah, I like that. I like it a lot. I always like Ryan Blaney is always my for DFS. Just plug in Ryan Blaney at Bristol. He's always one of my favorite plays. I think I've written him up every single time since I started doing content.
It's not the same, but like for value, it was the same with like Stenhouse or De Benedetto. You just plug and play him every year at Bristol.
Yep.
Just on a value standpoint. And that's it. You just plug and play him in your DFS lineups a good chunk and let the dominoes fall where they may, because they always had top 10 upside in sub 7K equipment. You know what I mean? for pricing on DraftKings.
Yep.
Occasionally Stenhouse will creep into the sevens, but yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So we'll see if your good picking continues this week. Like I said, you haven't picked anyone outside the top 10. See how mine does. And we got 500 laps at Bristol on Sunday, and I'm excited. This is going to be fun.
Like I said, I watched that 2022 race. I ended up watching the whole thing. It was long. Now, there were a lot of cautions because of all the blown tires. That was a long race. 500 miles of Bristol is a long race. It's longer than it seems like it should be. But I love it. That's great. That's why I love Bristol.
And that's another thing that adds to the unpredictability of it, because there's 500 laps, and one minor mistake here or one minor issue, you're done. Like,
oh yeah,
that's your race, because you have to hit.
Blaney was dominating one year, and 2 lap cars crashed in front of him, and he had nowhere to go and hit him, and he was done.
Yep.
I'll never forget that, because I was high as shit on Blaney that day in DFS, I think it was.
Same. I remember that well. Yeah, I think that was the first time Ryan Blaney was dead to me.
That wasn't even his fault, though.
I know, but I was so mad.
Yeah, of course.
I don't know what the weather looks like. I want to say that it's supposed to rain all weekend, though. I'm trying to pull it up here.
Honestly, I haven't even like this weekend's insane rain because it's Selection Sunday for NCAA basketball, which is why they're doing the day Bristol race instead of the night, I guess. So hopefully it's over by Selection Sunday, that kind of thing. But I don't think it will be. But yeah, Sunday is going to be pretty crazy for me with Selection Sunday. I'll have to appear on a live show for analyzing the bracket, watch Bristol. Honestly, though, I'm excited, though. There's only one series racing this weekend outside of Cup in terms of NASCAR, and I think it's the trucks. So no Xfinity this weekend. So that helps ease the burden. Ease the burden. Too many Burtons in NASCAR. Ease the burden a little bit on the weekend load. But like you said, it's also weird with the Saturday later practice and qualifying. So that'd be interesting from a content standpoint. Kind of sucks, but it is what it is.
Yep. At least we don't have to deal with it every week.
At least we don't have to deal with the fucking dirt.
The schedules are good. Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, God. But good luck to everybody this weekend at Bristol. We'll talk to you next week on Circuit of the Americas. First road course race of the season coming up after Bristol. So, good stretch of races here, like we said last week, coming up. Starts with Bristol this weekend, Food City 500. Hopefully viewership continues to go up too. Got another race on Fox. So good luck, everybody. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.